January 26, 1945. A frozen field outside Holtz, France. An American M10 tank destroyer is on fire, smoke pouring from its hull. It's a ticking bomb, packed with 3-inch shells and nearly 200 gallons of fuel. But as German infantry and 6 tanks advance across the snow, one lone American officer does the unthinkable. He doesn't run from the burning vehicle, he climbs onto it. He is a perfect target, standing on a platform that could explode at any second. His action makes no military sense. By every rule of combat, it is suicide. That man was 2nd Lieutenant Audie Murphy. This act would make him America's most decorated soldier. But the official record is not a story of blind heroism. It's a tactical report. So, how did one man truly stop a combined arms assault? The answer begins hours earlier, with the impossible situation facing his company. The battle for what the Allies called the Colmar Pocket had been a meat grinder. For the American 3rd Infantry Division, the cost of pushing through the bitter French winter was staggering. Nowhere was this more apparent than in Company B of the 15th Infantry Regiment. Audie Murphy commanded what was left of it. The company's official roster was a ghost. Of the 122 combat-effective soldiers who began the campaign, only 18 enlisted men and Murphy himself remained on the line. Casualties had been so severe that Murphy, at just 20 years old, was not only the company commander, but its only remaining officer. His orders for January 26th were simple and absolute: hold the line. His skeleton crew was tasked with defending a long, exposed stretch of woods bordering the town of Holtz, a vital position for the entire American front. His only heavy support consisted of 2 M10 tank destroyers from the 636th Tank Destroyer Battalion. But men and machines were at their breaking point.
This fragile defensive line, held by a handful of freezing, exhausted soldiers, was directly in the path of a determined German push to retake the town. Its ultimate test was only hours away. At 2 p.m., the German assault began. A storm of artillery and mortar fire descended on the woods. As the barrage lifted, 6 tanks and 2 companies of infantry in white snow camouflage materialized from the morning fog, advancing across the open field. A high-velocity 88mm shell found its mark. One of the 2 American M10 tank destroyers erupted in flames, its surviving crew bailing out.
With his right flank instantly shattered, Murphy made a brutal command decision. He ordered his 18 men to fall back to a prepared position deeper in the woods. But he didn't go with them. He remained forward, alone, clutching a field telephone as the German force advanced unopposed. From his position in a snow-filled ditch, Murphy was not just a company commander. He was now the forward artillery observer. With the SCR-300 radio on his back for backup and the EE-8 field telephone line still connected to the 15th Infantry's Fire Direction Center, he became the eyes of the American cannons miles away. He began calling in coordinates, walking the shells closer and closer to the German advance. His Medal of Honor citation would later note he directed fire as close to his own position as he could. This wasn't a reckless gamble. It was a precise tactical maneuver designed to do one thing: sever the link between the German infantry and their armored spearhead.
From the German perspective, the battle was going according to plan. The American line had broken. Their soldiers were seen retreating into the woods, and a tank destroyer was burning, a clear sign of a successful breach. The German infantry, clad in white, began to move up to exploit the gap and consolidate the victory. But then, a storm of high-explosive shells erupted in their midst. The fire was unnervingly accurate, a curtain of steel that fell from the sky, forcing them to drop into the snow or dive for any available cover. The infantry assault was shattered, leaving their 6 tanks to push forward alone, a fatal error in combined arms warfare. The artillery had bought time, but the German tanks kept coming. Pinned down, Murphy saw the burning M10 tank destroyer, the one that had been hit first. Its crew was gone, but through the billowing smoke, he could see its turret-mounted .50 caliber M2 Browning machine gun was still intact, its ammunition box in place. A desperate calculation formed. The fire provided a partial smokescreen, and the vehicle's hull offered the only elevated firing position on the entire battlefield. He had a choice: stay in the ditch and be overrun, or seize the most dangerous, most valuable piece of real estate in Holtzsphere. He crawled out of his ditch and ran towards the burning wreck. Heaving himself onto the turret, Murphy was now silhouetted against the gray sky, a perfect target. He grabbed the handles of the heavy M2, swiveled its barrel toward the enemy, and pulled the trigger. He wasn't trying to knock out the tanks. He was systematically traversing the gun across the German infantry line. The powerful .50 caliber rounds, designed to punch through light armor, tore through the snow-covered field, kicking up plumes of ice and dirt. They pinned down the soldiers who had survived the artillery barrage, broke up their formations, and neutralized anyone who attempted to move forward to support their now isolated tanks. The German attack ground to a halt. The momentum was gone, replaced by confusion and frustration. Their infantry was trapped in a perfectly coordinated kill box, caught between relentless artillery and a single, devastatingly effective machine gun. They couldn't advance to support their armor, they couldn't retreat under the shelling, and they couldn't effectively locate and silence the source of the machine gun fire, which seemed to be coming from a burning vehicle that should have been abandoned. An attack that seemed moments from success was being held at bay by one point of impossible resistance. He is holding them off, but he is a single, exposed target on a burning pile of high explosives. This cannot last. This was not a one-man show. Murphy's incredible stand was a system, utterly dependent on two things he couldn't control: the unseen artilleryman miles away and the fragile field telephone line snaking through the snow, connecting his voice to their guns. Then, a German shell explodes nearby. The Medal of Honor citation notes with clinical brevity, he was wounded in the leg, but ignored the pain. A piece of shrapnel has torn into him.
Now he is fighting not just the German advance, but his own body, bleeding, in pain, on the freezing steel of a burning vehicle. The entire defense now rests on a wounded man, a thin copper wire, and sheer, unsustainable willpower. For what witnesses would later describe as nearly an hour, Audie Murphy remains on the burning tank destroyer. He works the M2 Browning, systematically suppressing any German movement. The infantry attack, caught between his relentless fire and the unending artillery, finally shatters. With their support screen gone, the exposed German tanks are now vulnerable targets. They halt, then begin a slow withdrawal. Only when the last belt of .50 caliber ammunition is spent does Murphy stop firing. Exhausted and bleeding, he slides off the turret and limps toward the woods. Moments later, the M10's fuel and ammunition finally cook off. A massive explosion rips through the clearing, confirming the unbelievable risk he had taken. So we return to the moment he climbed onto that burning tank destroyer. An act that looked like suicide was, in fact, a desperate but brilliant tactical calculation. Murphy used the only assets he had left: an elevated firing position, a powerful anti-infantry weapon, and the remote fire of his artillery. But his battle wasn't over. Refusing evacuation for his wound, Murphy organized his men and, seizing the momentum, led a counterattack that finally drove the Germans from the woods, fulfilling his original objective. Audie Murphy's greatest feat wasn't just climbing onto a burning vehicle. It was the vision to see a symbol of imminent defeat and turn it into the very weapon of victory.